Macau, all glitz and glamour. But its casino culture hides the city's true charms. It's what lies beneath that tells the real story of this tiny region. I'm Julian Davison, historian and anthropologist. Come with me as I take you on a journey to a place that bridges east and west. Celebrated through its language. Komotavai. Cuisine. Absolutely scrumptious. Architecture.
I think this is something striking.
And beliefs. And gain fascinating insight into its one-of-a-kind identity. I'm going beyond the bright lights and beneath the 21st century veneer to reveal the true face of Macau. This is Macau as we know it. Christened the Monte Carlo of the Orient, it's the world's gambling mecca, earning an annual revenue almost 7 times that of Las Vegas. And the Cotai Strip is testament to that. This is so emblematic of today's Macau, all glitz and bling. But scratch beneath the surface modernity, and the city's ancient and culturally diverse past is revealed. Located south of the mainland, on over 12 square miles of land, Macau was originally just the peninsula itself, before the islands of Taipa and Koloan were annexed in the 1800s. As a Portuguese trade post for over 400 years, Macau became a vital link for exchanges between China and the West. This position would have a profound effect on the city's distinct identity, unlike anywhere else in Asia. This is Macau's historic center. It contains 22 buildings linked by 8 urban squares and streetscapes, symbolizing centuries of east-west coexistence. It has become the city's trademark. What we see today has been over 400 years in the making, an urban fabric that captures the golden age. Culturally, there has never been anything like Macau. Elements of China, Greater Asia, and Europe in one small place for more than 400 years. But the city's history began long before the arrival of the Portuguese. Since the early 5th century, trading ships along the Maritime Silk Road sought refuge from turbulent storms at sea, using the harbor as shelter. Among Macau's first settlers, fishermen from Fujian, China, who set up a fishing village and brought with them their great reverence for the sea and its deity. And I'm here at Ama Temple, the oldest surviving building in Macau, built to commemorate Ama or Matsu, goddess of the sea. The temple is said to be the landing point of the Portuguese.
The Portuguese, they landed in a beach in the entrance of the temple. They asked the people here, well, where are we? Yes. What is this place? They said, well, this is called in the local people, Ma Gok Miu. That means the temple of Ma Gok. So later on, Ma Gok became Macau for the Portuguese.
With the Portuguese setting up the very first trade post between Europe and China, a new era for Macau begins. Stemming from the old Chinese business district, the city's commerce and trade prospered in the 1600s, much of which can still be seen today. Oh, wow, I mean, this is a gateway out of ancient China. Today, Macau is the most densely populated place on Earth. The streets converge at Samkai Wee Kun Temple, a near 300-year-old witness to the historical evolution of Macau's trade. This temple was the former Chamber of Commerce. Here, official edicts from the Chinese mainland were publicly announced. The earliest inhabitants were Chinese fishermen and farmers. But later, as Macau grew in commercial importance, more people from the mainland came here to cash in. Merchants, craftsmen and laborers, to name but a few. In fact, it was the local merchants who helped the Portuguese set up trade routes in the region, acting as agents and interpreters. Up until the 17th century, Macau was about 1 square mile with less than 40,000 people. Yet the city flourished from foreign trade and ended up being run by some of the oldest and most influential Chinese families. The Mandarin's house belonged to one such family. Home to economic theorist Zheng Kunying, whose work resonated with China's reformers and revolutionaries. On a sprawling area of more than 43,000 square feet, with over 60 rooms, this is the largest residential complex in Macau. The Mandarin's house is a symbol of the city's wealth and prosperity during the early days of trade. Situated in the first residential quarter of the Portuguese settlers, this traditional Chinese building's immediate and contrasting urban environment illustrates Macau's culturally diverse background. This city was the port of call on the ancient maritime Silk Road for millennia, bridging China to Western ports along the historic seaway. By the start of the 17th century, silver, silk and porcelain all flowed between Nagasaki, Manila, Malacca, Goa and Europe, with Macau at the epicenter. This was Portugal's golden age in Asia.
The foreigners would come here and take them into different routes. In the beginning, a lot of Portuguese were involved, yes, but then many others became interested. For example, the Dutch, and with them the Spanish, the English, and many other people in Europe became interested in this trading with Asia.
This is the most important archaeological discovery in Macau to date. Further tangible evidence of its status within the Maritime Silk Road legacy. But this newfound wealth meant that Macau faced more threats than ever before. Marauders at its doorstep, eyeing the city and its fortunes. Six forts and several defensive walls were constructed to form a chain around the peninsula, all with cannons that faced away from China to show the two weren't at war. The amount of coastal defenses they built here shows us just how important Macau's position on the Maritime Silk Road really was. These Moorish barracks were built to protect this outpost of the Portuguese Empire. Beyond the trade and the tumultuous past that came with it is a culture born from Macau's unique mixed heritage. Dom Pedro Quinta Theatre, the first Western-style theatre in China, is living proof of that. Built in 1860, this cultural hub continues to be central to the Macanese community.
Okay, when you meet somebody, in English you will say, hey, how are you? In Patois, we will say, "Como ta vai?"
Como ta vai?
That's a very important expressions among the Macanese. Como ta vai, everybody will smile. That's the word. Como ta vai is how are you? Hey, he's one of us.
That's very nice. I like that. Ethnic Macanese, product of generations of intermarriages between already mixed-blood Portuguese settlers with Chinese, Japanese, and Malay, are today dedicated to conserving their legacy. The performing arts is one medium that helps connect them to the past. And so too is food. I'm hoping 99-year-old chef Aida de Jesus is able to share just what that means. What is Macanese food, Macanese cooking? What little I understand, it's a mixture of Portuguese, Chinese, African, Malay, Indian.
So you're very clever. You know so many kinds of things.
Aida tells me that many Macanese recipes were jealously guarded family secrets. One household's recipe differs to the next. Local wives of Portuguese traders tried to reproduce home dishes for their husbands, but often lacking the right ingredients, they began to experiment, using local flavors and those fresh off the spice trade route from Africa, Southeast Asia, and India, giving the cuisine its reputation as the world's first fusion food. The long trajectory of Macau's history has stood for many things: an ancient trade stop and a port of refuge for passing ships, which brought wealth, culture, and a new religion. The ruins of St. Paul's are Macau's landmark attraction. Acting as an altar to the city, it was built in the 16th century by Jesuit missionaries when commercial expansion and wealth led to Macau becoming a center for Christian mission work throughout Asia. Attached to the facade was the first Western-style college in the Far East.
The dragon, which was carved like a hydra with a demon head, because the Jesuits were so clever and so careful in their Christianization process, and they don't want to offend the Chinese, because the dragon is a very good symbol and a symbol of the emperor.
Right.
The 4 Chinese dragons represented in this corner as gargoyles, and in the west, the gargoyle were representing allegoric monsters. The good temples of Macau, just before the main gate, they are always 2 protective lions. I think this is something striking.
The architecture of Macau demonstrates not just the merging of Eastern and Western influences, but also an amalgam of new skills, cultural ideas, and religious beliefs. For me, this speaks volumes about the history and heritage of Macau. Neither wholly Chinese nor entirely Portuguese, it is something much more complex and rich. And that is exactly what is worth celebrating. Today, Macau celebrates its vivid diversity every year with traditional Chinese festivals, alongside Christian and Catholic processions, the Passion of Our Lord, and Lady Fatima. The annual Drunken Dragon dance, performed by the fishmongers of Macau, is one of the highlights of the year. This celebration is now firmly on China's National Intangible Cultural Heritage list. Macau's maritime legacy lives on through its people and its traditions, and I'm privileged to be a part of it. I'm beginning to feel the genetic makeup of Macau finally unravel before me. This is a place that has cultural experimentation and openness in its DNA. Macau owes all of this to its historical position on the Maritime Silk Route, a gateway to China, a meeting point of East and West. Today, it's the casinos which drive the economy, but it's this historical identity, this mixing of global cultures, which makes Macau so special. Long may it stay that way.